The sun had barely begun its descent when the two men galloped into town, dust kicking up like a ghostly veil behind them. The saloon doors slammed open, and the taller of the two, a wiry man with a jagged scar running down his cheek, threw a glance around the dimly lit room before locking eyes on the bartender. "Whiskey," he barked, his voice rough like sandpaper. His partner, broader and meaner-looking, stayed near the entrance, scanning the street outside with restless eyes. At the hitching post outside, a third horse stood between theirs, a striking, coal-black stallion with a mane that shimmered like flowing silk. It wasn't theirs, but it would be. Minutes later, the bartender turned his back to grab another bottle, and the men slipped out. With quick, practiced hands, they untied the stallion, mounted their own, and rode hard out of town. By the time anyone noticed, they were long gone, dust swallowed by the horizon. Miles away, an old man stood atop a small ridge, staring down at the vast open land below. He'd been riding that horse for years, trusted it more than he trusted most men. The moment he saw the empty hitching post, he knew. Some men steal money, some steal cattle, but to steal a man's horse? That was an act of war. He exhaled, slow and deep, and for the first time in years, a fire rekindled in his eyes. A fire people once feared. He stepped forward, his silhouette cutting through the twilight. The two thieves reached a hidden canyon before stopping. The taller one patted the black stallion's side, grinning. "Ain't she a beauty? We could get a small fortune for her." His partner nodded, pulling a bottle from his saddlebag. "We lay low here. By morning, we head south." They built a small fire, laughing and drinking. They were reckless. They were sure of themselves. Until the wind shifted. A strange, eerie stillness fell over the canyon. The flames of the fire wavered. The horses grew restless. The stallion, stolen, defiant, snorted and pawed at the ground. Then, in the flickering light, a figure emerged from the darkness, his boots pressing firm into the dust. A man, tall, lean, moving like a shadow. The thieves stiffened. Something about him set their nerves on edge. Maybe it was the way he stood, his posture unreadable. Maybe it was the way the firelight flickered in his eyes. Or maybe it was something deeper, something primal that gnawed at the bones. The taller thief reached for his revolver. The man spoke. "That's my horse." His voice was smooth but firm, carrying the weight of something old, something unshakable. The thieves exchanged glances, but the man didn't move. Didn't twitch, just stood there, waiting. "Listen, mister," the broader thief said, resting his hand on his hip just inches from his gun. "You got the wrong—" The man took a single step forward. The fire illuminated his face. And then they knew. The taller thief staggered back, his breath catching in his throat. The other's hand, poised to draw his revolver, froze mid-motion. Because staring back at them, beneath the weight of years and dust and stories whispered in saloons across the land, was Clint Eastwood. Not just a name, not just a legend, a force. They had stolen the wrong horse. The broader man swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly dry. This ain't possible." Eastwood's gaze was unwavering. "You got two choices. Leave the horse and walk away." He let the pause stretch long enough to squeeze air from their lungs. "Or don't." The taller thief was trembling now. His mind raced. The stories, the things people said. Some called them myths, but he wasn't so sure anymore. The man standing before them, looking through them, wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a trick of the mind. He was the storm that had rolled through the West long before they ever picked up a gun. Slowly, the broader man nodded. He dropped his gun belt, stepping away from the horse. The taller one hesitated. His fingers twitched near his holster, but one look at Eastwood's eyes, and he let out a shaky breath, lifting his hands in surrender. Eastwood didn't move, didn't speak. He just waited as they stumbled backward, their boots scuffing against the dirt, before turning and running into the night, running as though the devil himself had spared them once, but wouldn't grant them a second chance. The stallion stood still, waiting. Eastwood reached out, running a hand along its mane. "Let's go home." And just like that, he mounted up, turning into the darkness from which he came, leaving nothing behind but the dying embers of a thief's mistake.